Boom, it's your boy Muhammad Cannon, the Patriarch. I'm here representing for the good folks at Urban Politician. Listen, it's some tumultuous times. You gotta stay informed. There's no better place to do it than the Urban Politician. Why? Because they speak our language and it's deep. You see what I'm saying? So you gotta stay informed. You gotta keep your fingers on the pulse. That's Kazembe Ajamu. That's Jensen Henry. That's the Urban Politician. Get your information. You done know.
On today's episode of the Urban Politician Show, Republican fear of a Black voter turnout in 2021 and 2022. The Urban Politician Show breaks down legislation and what we can do to stop it with guest speaker, attorney, and former mayor Deborah A. Jackson. We will be discussing proposed voting restrictions in Georgia, Census Bureau and redistricting, and the state legislative process.
Welcome, everyone. And I am having technical difficulties already. My screen blew up. Hold on.
Kaz, did we lose you? I would also like to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by Black Dot Cultural Center and Bookstore. I would also like to let you all know that today's show is
Sorry about that. Are we still live? I believe we are.
We are still live.
All right, so we got to do our intro. Oh, we did our intro already.
We did.
We have a special intro song today, do we not?
Oh, that's me. Sorry about that.
What that is.
That was me. Do you want me to introduce the intro song, guys?
Yes, please.
Okay. That's okay. That's what the hesitation was. Okay. So our intro song is a song that we've played on the show before. But this time that we play Change is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke, we will be hearing it from...
You're freezing
my
up.
mother.
Say that one more time because you froze up, dear.
I said today, when we play Change is Gonna Come, this version is going to be sung by Hope Gary of the Hope Band, who is also my mother.
And you're going to be singing over top of her, right?
I guess.
All right. Let's do this. Yeah.
The songs we're going to do for you this evening are songs that we felt.
Oh, yeah, I meant to remind you that there's talking at the beginning of that.
That if he had lived, these are some of the songs that would have been in his repertoire. One of the things that we want you to know is what we found out was Dr. King was actually a funk master. There was one time at one of the events that he was having, you had James Brown doing an event. And Dr. King, because of everyone was going around at the event, they weren't actually really put together for the event. And James Brown was playing, and he said, look, forget about this. I'm going to see James Brown. So that gave us the indication that, yeah, Dr. King was definitely a funk master. So we hope you enjoy these songs, as we hope you will too. Born by the river, like
Come just like Abraham. Change won't come. Yes, it will.
It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
Afraid to die.
Yonder sky, it's been a long time coming. I know change. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody just needs to hang around. Time coming. Then I go to my world. I say, brother, help me please. It's how can you back down on my knees? There's been times that I thought I could last for long. Now I know I can make it. Oh, yes, it Then I go to my love. I say, brother,
Welcome to the Urban Politician Show. I am your host, Kazim Dejamu, and my co-host is remote today,
I
Jensen
am.
Henry. Hey, Jensen.
Hey, Kaz.
I can't hear
Thank
you.
Oh, man, what happened to
Are
the
you
sound? I
on
was
mute
okay before.
You're on mute.
I am not.
But for whatever reasons, I can't hear you. So let's see what's going on with your mic. Hello? Jensen?
Now it's unmuted. Can you hear me?
We're having technical difficulties here.
No, we were doing so well.
I'm going while you're watching us try to figure this out. We have a special guest today in the house, attorney and former mayor of Lithonia, Deborah Jackson. I like to call her the policy wonk. And Jensen is supposed to be talking about what we're going to talk about today. So I guess I'm going to be doing that.
I did that.
Title of our show today is Republican Fear of a Black Voter Turnout in 2021 and 2022. The Urban Politician Show breaks down legislation and what we can do to stop it with our special guests. We're going to talk about proposed voting restrictions in Georgia. And for all of you that live outside of Georgia, I think Arizona has a little bit more egregious votes or legislation, but any place where there are Republican run state houses in swing states, they're trying to do this. We're going to talk about the Census Bureau and redistricting. And I need to bring her in while I'm talking about it. And we're going to talk about the state legislative process. I think a lot of us do not realize or understand how things go through the state, sometimes why legislation takes a long time. But I want to give a warm welcome. I hope I could hear her because I don't know if I hear my co-host yet.
Can you hear me?
Let's give a warm welcome to attorney Deborah Jackson. I got that part right. Deborah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can also
hear you. So for whatever reasons,
the only one who can't hear
both
me.
of my guests are somehow out. So if you can hear me, I want you to close your link out, close it out, and then with that link that I sent you, I want you to come back in.
Okay.
Can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Remember the link, Deborah, that you clicked on to get into the broadcast?
Okay.
Close out and then come back in. Jensen, you do the same.
Okay.
And let's see if we can get you guys back. Because I think you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Okay, Deborah's gone. Jensen, you do the same. And then when you come back in, hopefully this time we can get you back. And for those that are out there listening to us, thank you for your patience. As we're going through this live, I'm learning every day how to do this. And we sometimes have technical difficulties. But how's everybody out there doing? I see we have some guests. We invite you. Here's Deborah back. So let me get her back. Can you hear me now, Deborah?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And I hear you, but I don't know what's going on with the mics here. Oh, Deborah?
Yes.
You know what? Y'all gonna kill me. That was me. That was my error. I turned y'all mic all the way down. I didn't realize I turned it down. Here's Jensen back. Hey, Jensen.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, that was me.
That's great.
I turned y'all mics off. So now I have everybody back. So I've given the description of the show. I've welcomed our special guests, our what I like to say, my favorite policy wonk.
Accurate.
Accurate.
Yes, that is accurate.
She was our former mayor of Lithonia. She ran for the Senate race for the state of Georgia. Hopefully,
I found out that thing's rigged. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
yes, you did.
I'm sorry. My bad.
You're quite loud. Right. So Deborah, Attorney Jackson,
Yes.
what is going on with Republicans in the state of Georgia?
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here this evening. But what is going on? We're seeing a continuation of the insurrection that we witnessed live on January 6th. So it's now moved from the Capitol in Washington to the state houses that Republicans control around the country. So that is what is going on.
That I like that because it is a direct correlation, right? Because that was inspired by fear, fear that they would lose power and voice, and we can kind of go down the line with white nationalists and white supremacy and all of that. And Republicans, particularly in this state and others, are really fearing. We have elections coming up in 2021. Those are local municipal elections, and in 2022 they want to stay in power. So I pulled out some, I believe it's 12 bills that the state of Georgia, 12 bills that Republican are proposing to change election laws. And I kind of went through, detailed a few of them. I kind of want to detail on what the ramifications of that can be. And even though I'm not going to go in order on how I wrote it out, but eliminate mobile voting buses during election voting. Now, I really wanted to highlight that.
Cass, yeah, well, before you do that, I was just interested in sharing some information just to kind of put this all in a context, because you have people, I guess, listening who are not just in Georgia. So I had a chance to kind of just look at some research that has been done by the Brennan Center for Justice. So I sort of recommend that for people just to kind of use that to monitor what's going on. And so in terms of voting laws, they did a comparison between what has happened as of February 2021 versus February of last year, and just to show you the difference. So as of February 2021, there's been 33 states that have introduced, pre-filed, or carried over 165 restrictive bills. So that's 33 states with 165 restrictive bills. February of 2020, there were only 15 states that had 35 bills. So it wasn't that they weren't attempting, but they were. You can see that now, after results of the 2020 election, they have gotten much more aggressive.
Yes.
But the good news is that, so while you have the Republicans who have been advocating votes to restrict voting rights, the Democratic local officials have also been proposing bills to expand voting rights. And so on the expansive side, this year, 37 states have introduced 541 bills to expand access, whereas last year, 29 states had 188 bills. So there's just a lot of activity happening around voting rights on both sides of this issue.
Right. And so to further put it in context, depending on which state you live in and which party is the majority in their legislative houses and the executive or their governor will depend on a lot of how this goes, correctly, which way it goes. And states like Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Michigan, although they do have a Democratic governor. I don't know if they have enough veto rights to override the governor in Michigan or not. But in these states, it can be counter to some of the things that we want to really restrict our voices and our votes. I want to also bring back the Brennan Center of Justice for our listeners. Go on there. I put it up online and subscribe. I did last week because we actually talked about that article that you just cited last week. I don't know if Jensen remembers or not, but the Brennan Center for Justice. I believe I spelled that correctly. Did I not? You see that on the line, Mayor?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is right. So I'm going to keep that up there for a minute. So this is all out war. That's what I call it. Political war.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of stake. We do have listeners across the country. So I'm narrowing in on Georgia, but we did a show, and you can kind of go back, and Jensen, you might remember what show we did where we kind of showed you how you can find who your congressional leaders are on the congress.gov, and you can go on your state government websites. I get alerts from my state rep, not my state senators yet, but my state rep. So I can kind of see what they're involved in, what they're co-sponsoring, and you can follow these bills. And thank you for that context, Mayor, because it's important. And I was just going to go in. That's why we have her. Hey, Jensen. Is Jensen freezing up on us? I believe she has.
Looks like it.
She looks like it. She'll be back. I'm
not frozen. I'm just working. I'm sorry. I'm getting this link together for you for Brennan Center. I'm working on my side.
Thank you.
No problem. And you're not getting comments again, so I'm also dealing with that too.
Yes, for some reason. Mayor, each show, we don't see. We're supposed to see the comments as they come in, and then when the show is over, we see all the comments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we haven't quite figured out how to correct that yet. Okay. Often when we hear that voter suppression is an attack on people of color and African Americans in particular, sometimes I see eyes roll as to whether or not is true. And I started before the mayor correctly put this in context. There was one that really kind of struck to the heart of that, and that's eliminating mobile voting buses during early voting. And that souls to the polls. Mm-hmm. And Republicans in Georgia, and I'm not sure about in other states, they're actually trying to do this, aren't they? This is for real. And I don't know, we can scream and jump up and down to the top of our lungs, but people really need to know what's going on here. They are actually in my opinion, they're scared to death. And this is, I'm just going to read some of them. Required, and Mayor, when they say require an excuse to cast an absentee ballot, what exactly are they saying for that? Because you didn't need an excuse prior in 2020, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So they actually, when they introduced the advanced voting, and it's actually done under when the Republicans gained control of both houses and the governorship back in 2006, that they were the ones who actually introduced the advanced voting no excuse. And so for any reason, you could go and vote early. And now they want to limit it to an age requirement that you either have to have either a disability, an age requirement, over 70, and, some other reason so that they still would be early voting, but you would have to have a reason that is approved to go, whereas now you can just go.
Now, prior to 2020, the majority of people who utilize absentee ballot were really not African Americans, correct? Or even Democrats at that matter. They were mostly Republican voters. But because of COVID-19, there was a groundswell of people, I guess Democrats primarily and African Americans that utilized that system, whereas Republicans did the complete opposite. Now they're trying to change the rules of the game. Like the goalpost keeps changing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so there was really an effort. So, but plus with the June primaries that we had in Georgia, with people waiting in line up to 6 hours and more. So there really was a push to do the voting by mail really after the June primaries. I mean, it had started before, encouraging people because of the COVID concerns, but there really was a concerted effort to let people know that there was basically it's about was having a safe way to vote.
Are there any? No, I do have a list, but are there any of these bills or all of them that really concerned you at this point, where it is at this juncture, if it were to pass?
Yeah, well, they're all very concerning. So one in terms of you have SB 67 is one of the bills, Senate Bill 67, that requires an ID to just request the absentee ballot. And then you have to send a copy or put down your identifying information when you return the ballot back in. So it's interesting. I mean, so because what we really have going on is that with 11 bills, so there really hasn't been any good coordination, fortunately, on the Republican side in terms of the things that they're attempting to introduce. So there are some bills that appear to be conflicting and they're not sort of following the same program. But the main thing to note is that they are putting barriers in ways. So in terms of reducing the amount of time that you could request an absentee ballot. So right now you can really sort of do it at any point, up to 6 months in advance. And now they want to restrict the requests coming in, or that they not allow the Board of Elections to not send them out until 10 days before the election.
So I have another question. Well, I have several questions. For those people who say, well, this is the state of Georgia, Republicans control both Georgia houses and the governorship, we can't do anything about it. What do we do? What do you say to people that feel helpless in the light of who's controlling the executive and the legislative bodies in the state of Georgia? What are some of the, I know this is a double question, I'm asking you more than one question. What are some of the on the ground activities that's going on? And ultimately, we want to kind of talk about what are some of the things that everyday people can do to not only stay abreast of what's going on, but to take action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always important in terms of contacting your local representative. And in this particular case, I mean, so being in DeKalb County, most of our delegation, I would say, are opposed to these bills that have been introduced. And so we know people who happen to be Republicans or have a Republican as their representative, that we also need to engage them to just to explain to people that democracy is supposed to be made accessible for people, that we should not be putting obstacles in people's way to exercise their right to vote, and to help to get their assistance in terms of contacting their elected officials. And then this really is about being an advocate. So if you look at the numbers, you might say, oh yes, the deck is already stacked, but that doesn't mean that you can't be an advocate. And sometimes if enough of us raise our voice loud enough, it can have some influence. And then at the end of the day, if it should pass and the governor signs it and it becomes law, then there are a number of groups that have already primed to, bring litigation against those bills to challenge them in court.
Yes, and I was speaking to someone in DeKalb County today, and there are several organizations, ACLU, was it Fair Fight,
Yes.
and others that are ready and prepared to litigate. and feel pretty confident that they can win, actually. And then, of course, we have what's going on with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act in Congress. So I understand that the House has passed this version this legislative body. Is that correct? And I also understand
I don't
that.
know if they've actually, but I know they were planning to vote on it. I'm not sure if they've actually taken the vote yet. So I know they've been working on a couple of things. They've been really focusing on getting the rescue package for the COVID relief.
Yes.
Energy has been devoted there, and I know voting rights is right behind that.
And that means when the Voting Rights Act comes before the House, which it should pass the House, when it gets to the Senate, and I want you to kind of explain to people when they hear they got to blow up the filibuster, because we know John Warnock and Ossoff won with Vice President Harris. We think that we have the majority in the Senate, but just because we may have 51 votes doesn't necessarily mean that that's just going to fly through the Senate. So when people hear blow up the filibuster, or what is the filibuster, can you explain to our listeners what that process is?
Yeah, so basically the filibuster, and it's something that came from the I guess the beginning of the Congress, but it's a way of providing control for the so-called minority party, and that for certain types of legislation to pass, it really requires 60 votes as opposed to a mere majority of 51 votes. And so, for example, would it be related to approving judgeships? When the Democrats had control, they basically removed the filibuster for getting judges approved during the Obama administration. And then when the Republicans gained control, they just kind of went full speed ahead and filled over 200 federal judgeships, which are appointments for life. And then the Republicans then eliminated the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees. And so that's how they were able to get through 3 appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court, under the Trump administration. So the filibuster still exists as it relates to certain types of legislation. So, for example, you've heard the discussion around using budget reconciliation to address the issue of the rescue package for the COVID relief that has our $1,400 stimulus check tied to it. And because otherwise it would require 60 votes to get that passed, but if they go through the budget reconciliation process, it only requires 51.
So when we know that the COVID relief is not going to be an issue with the filibuster, and potentially infrastructure, because that can be done under the budget reconciliation. However, the Voting Rights Act cannot. So the Democrats would have to exercise that, but then they have this blue dog Democrat in West Virginia, Joe Manchin, that they have no idea where he's going to land in that vote. So it's not a done deal, basically. We don't know what's going to happen with that. And that and you explained this to me thoroughly yesterday, I believe it was, when we talked. But if that Voting Rights Act was to pass both the House and Senate, and of course Biden was signing it into law, all these things that the state of Georgia and Arizona and Michigan and North Carolina that they're doing would actually be a moot point. Is that correct?
Well, not completely. I mean, so in terms of, it would definitely strengthen any legal challenge to it, so because then it would be, those laws would be a violation of federal law. And you would think that they would take that as guidance to not go ahead and, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is actually put in place, that they would stop from their efforts. But I wouldn't bank on that. It would just make it that we would have a much stronger case to, get those laws overturned.
Wow. This is going to be a dogfight. It's
Yeah, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. But if we remember just the history of, the right to vote in this country has been a fight since the very beginning. Back
absolutely
in 1776, only white men with property who were Protestants
right. Absolutely.
could vote.
Way
So
to make it detailed.
so we had the first election for George Washington in 1789. Only 6% of the population was eligible to vote.
Was eligible to vote.
Eligible to vote.
Yeah, that's the key word. Eligible. There was time, again, like you said, only men, then black men, then women, then Jim Crow. So it has always been a fight. Jensen, you like bitten, you ready to say something?
Well, as you know me, I'm always making associations. So if break that down for me again one more time, Mayor Deborah Jackson, because what I heard you say is that only 6% of the country fit into this criteria. And then we talk about the top 1% or the top 2% of the country. Those two sound like they might have something to do with each other. You know, me, I'm always throwing my conspiracies together.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so the ability, the right to vote has been a very long haul, because because the 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
But then after the end of Reconstruction, that's when we saw the literacy test and the poll tax and, outright violence and intimidation. And so it wasn't until 1965 with the Voting Rights Act that it was really the right to vote for black men and women, was actually implemented. But even still with that, and that law has had to be extended, over time. And then we had a Supreme Court decision in 2013, I think, Shelby versus Holder, that basically gutted the pre-clearance requirement of the Voting Rights Act. And so that's when since 2013, that's when we saw this new slew of voter suppression taking place through the law, voter ID laws, reducing polling locations. I mean, just all kinds of things. So, but there are some people who seem to clearly want to turn the clock back.
Yes.
Should we say the slogan? Make America Great Again?
On that note, we have to go to break. We do have to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about not just the Census Bureau, but in redistricting. I said that word without getting tongue-tied this week. You notice that? Hey.
Yeah, I thought you were going to keep going and just say it like you do all the time.
Yes. And a lot of us, when we think of the Census Bureau, we just think the government's trying to count heads. We have no idea how that affects funding and how that affects redistricting or gerrymandering. So when we come back, we're going to Deborah Jackson is going to give us a lesson. You ever thought about teaching, being a professor of civics? I'm just curious.
Well, I actually taught political science a few years ago. Yeah, down at Gordon College.
That makes sense.
It does.
It would have been nice to be in that room. Good night. I'm glad to have you here today, though.
Exactly. And I don't have a second song for us today, so I'm going to play our commercial, and then you're going to go ahead and give us our quote for the day.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were going to sing.
Well, you know what? You can sing that on your own.
What's that? What am I singing?
A change is going to come.
I need lyrics.
No.
It's okay.
What do you want to sing? How about that?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
Well, I thought Cass said that he was going to sing.
I was going to sing. I don't think y'all want me singing.
I'll put Deborah Jackson on this one.
Yeah. What about a Nina Simone song?
I don't know. I don't have one of those off the top of my head right now, except Young, Gifted, and Black.
Hey, that
Hey,
works.
it's February, Black History
That
Month.
works.
Goodness.
So we're gonna give that. Matter of fact, you just go into it, and then we'll go to commercial after you finish. How about that?
Can we plan for it next show?
Oh, okay.
I'll just sing the To Be Young, Gifted, and Black part just because Mayor Deborah Jackson is here, and then we go to the break. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. To be young, gifted, and black. Oh, what a lovely, precious dream. You are young, gifted, and black. Open your heart to what I mean. In the whole world, you know, there's a million boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black, and that's a fact.
Wait a minute. Bang, bang, baby. I have to point of privilege. I have to talk about her. We started this show with the video of her mom singing, and her mom can sing, can blow, but for whatever reasons, her daughter, my co-host, she's coming out of her shell a little bit, but it's like she doesn't think, she listens to her mom. She says, I can't sing like her, so I can't sing. And for all you out there listening, that's not the truth. This girl could sing. I mean, sing. And I do know how to pronounce sings. So I'm just, I live in Georgia now. Sang. I got to put emphasis on that. So we're gonna keep pushing you up there to sing, girl, because you got a beautiful, absolutely beautiful voice. So in saying that, I'm going to commercial. How about that?
Thank you.
Yeah, you glad about that, right? Yes. I know you are. I know you are. So let's see here. Where are we? Bang. Okay.
Ooh. I'm not hearing that.
Then I need to do it over because I messed up. There we go. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it over. I'm going to get it right this time.
Of course.
Yep. I didn't hit the audio sound. There we go.
I figured that's what it was.
Yep. So there we go. Greetings. Welcome to Black Dot Cultural Center and Bookstore.
Black Dot Cultural Center and Bookstore on the east side of Metro Atlanta is a sacred space with the finest imported African coffees, books, events, and diaspora-inspired jewelry, art, and accessories. Visit us at 6984 Main Street, Lithonia, Georgia, or online at black.cc.com. There is light inside the Black Dot.
The quote of the day is sponsored by Dr. Chika Akua, master teacher and educator. The quote of the day is taken from Words of Power, Volume 2. Dream no small dreams. Envision no small visions. Pray no small prayers. For in the divine mind, there is no lack or limitation, only infinite possibilities. Dr. Chika Akua. Words of Power and other books by Dr. Chika Akua can be found online at blackdotcc.com.
And thank you. And we're back. We're back with our special guest,
Mayor, that former Mayor Deborah Jackson.
attorney. We yeah.
You know, I was gonna say, you know that you were really, really, really great at what you did when people still acknowledge you by that title, even when you don't have the job anymore. I think about that. We say that about President Obama. He's still President Obama, even though he's not the president anymore.
That's the proper decorum. Just because you continue to be mayor, but you're gonna have to figure out what show that was, what audio show we had attorney and former mayor Deborah Jackson on, so people could get a little bit of her history, because that's a whole show plus some.
Yeah.
Actually, that's 2 shows, just so you know what she's done and where she's been and why she is overqualified to be on the Urban Pilot. I'm just going to say overqualified, because it's an honor to me to have a policy wonk. And for those of you that don't know what a policy wonk is, that's a person who understands policies frontwards, backwards, upside down. They can speak it, they know it, they study it. That's what they do. For all of those people that have a problem with knowing what truth is anymore in politics, whether it's on the left or the right, policy wonks are the ones who really break that down. In fact, just to add to that, I think she mentioned the Brennan Center for Justice early on. That's another place that they're policy wonks. You want to know truth? This is how you find it. What is it? The Pew Center for Research. And there's another one that I'm thinking of that doesn't quite come to my mind right now. But there are places out there that you can go get truth. And she is an attorney. Now, Deborah, what do you specialize in actually? Because I know that you have, matter of fact, yes, talk to us about your firm. Yeah, we talk about all these things, but we need to give you your props. So somebody out here might need your services for something. My apologies for that.
No, that's quite all right. My focus is around community development issues. And so around citizen engagement, around policies and things that are happening within their communities, doing redevelopment plans. So those are things that I'm really passionate about. But I also do bread and butter, personal injury cases, wills, and helping to put together small estate probates and those kinds of things. So, but my passion is around the community development piece.
And what is the name of your law firm?
Yes, it's DAJ Associates, LLC.
And they're located where?
In downtown Lithonia.
Hey, Wall Street. Actually, Stonecrest is about to do a Black Wall Street, but that's a whole nother conversation. So here we go. Hey, Jensen.
Hey,
Beautiful rendition of Young, Gifted, and Black, by the way.
Thank you.
You're going to have to give us the whole thing.
Actually, I want to let everybody know that episode that you can hear about Attorney Deborah Jackson's background is actually episode 10. So that's in last season. And if you would like to go back and listen to it, and I really encourage you to do so, because you get to hear about Deborah Jackson's origin story, which is even more amazing than the woman herself, because it was really simple and beautiful. It was like, wait, why is this possible? And what can I do to fix it? It doesn't get any more simple than that, like any more beautiful than that. The self-empowerment to say that I know that I should be able to fix this problem. That's
That's
amazing.
that's a lesson for all of us.
Yeah, it sounds like the same reason a person would decide to be mayor and then would run for Senate.
Mm.
So I
And
posted the
she's
link.
not finished yet, by the way.
Clearly not, because
No.
it's within her from a child, because she was a teenager then, to do that very
Yes.
thing. So I posted
Yes.
the link for you guys to go back and listen to that show. Again, it was episode 10.
I'm going to show it here. So, Census Bureau and redistricting. So we're going to ask our guest, Attorney Deborah A. Jackson, break down for all those who think the Census Bureau is just the government trying to know where you are. Break down to us what are the benefits, one, that we provide information even though this period is over, and what are some of the things that come out of it in terms of funding, and then we're going to ultimately get to redistricting and how that plays a role in not just our states or Republicans maintaining power in our states, but also on the U.S. congressional side, particularly in the House. So last week we talked about the 2010 Census Bureau. There was an 18% growth in population in the state of Georgia. And from that, the 14th district was created in redistricting, which that is the district that I don't never remember that cook's name. What's her name? Marjorie
Taylor Greene.
Taylor
Yes.
Greene. Yes, that's.
He always struggles with that name, Mayor Jackson.
I actually don't really have. I don't want to remember that name. That's really what it is. So, but then I should, because I have to speak on it. But anyway, explain to us, Mayor, why is it important that not only we engage in the Census Bureau, but what comes out of that? And by failure to do so, on the flip side, what the issues are or problems such as voter restriction laws, redistricting. So can you explain that for our listeners?
Okay. Yes. Well, the U.S. Census is something that is required to be done every 10 years. So 2020 was the last census that was done because of and the main day is April 1st. But this year was the first year that you could actually complete the census application online. Which was a very new process. But for people who, have challenges getting access to the internet and things like that, there was some concerns so that there might be some undercount. But the main purpose of the census is to figure out how many people, whether they're citizens or not, are in the borders of the United States. And from that is used to apportion the numbers of the House of Representatives. So there are 432 members of the House, and the 432 gets divided among the 50 states. So depending on what the population, so if you should lose population, it's possible that you could lose one of your congressional representatives. As your population increases, you have the potential of gain. So in 2010, Georgia was able to gain an additional representative, and there were projections that we should be gaining another person for 2020. Because of the pandemic, because of the insanity within the Trump administration, there's no telling what the results are actually going to look like. I mean, so the pandemic really put a damper on the ability of the enumerators to go door to door to sort of follow up in those hard to count areas. Historically, the hard to count areas have been our communities of Black, Latino, and Asian members. And each year, every 10 years, we always find that there is some undercount. But those numbers are used to allocate resources as well to the states as relates to the various programs of Medicaid, Medicare, all of the different programs that exist. Food stamp program, all of those are based on, the number of, population within each state. And so one of the things that happens in terms of that, I think it provides an unfair advantage to many urban areas, is that they use the population of prisoners in the location where the prison is, as opposed to where the communities that those prisoners are from.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something, that needs to be addressed at some point, because people eventually will return to the communities that they're from, but not have the resources to be able to address that. So the big thing that people are waiting for, so technically the final results of the 2020 census should be available in April of this year, but we haven't heard officially, whether or not they're going to be available, or the date is going to be pushed back. Based on a recent town hall meeting, some of the DeKalb delegation members were saying that they're anticipating it may not be until May or possibly sometime in the summer, but there hasn't been any official announcement on that yet.
And upon receiving the data, I guess if it comes in May, because it's the Georgia, they're in session in Georgia only between January and March 31st, correct?
Well, they're in session for 40 days.
For 40 days.
For 40 days, but they're not consecutive. So if they take a week off to do committee work or something like that, those days don't count.
That's an interesting point. It's 40 days out of an entire year. And I heard something yesterday on the news that in Texas, their legislators are only in session every 2 years. I didn't hear how long, but it's like they skip an entire year. And I don't know how accurate that is, but I saw it on the news.
That also, it kind of caught my attention. I think it sounded like it was like either 100 days or 140 days, something like that. But they meet every 2 years.
Right. It's we elect these officials, and they're only in session 40 days in Georgia, 40 days out of the year. And Mayor, you threw a number when I talked to you the other day of how many pieces of legislation is on average is offered. I guess I don't know what the proposed, like thousands. Is that a realistic number in this 40-day session that they have to cram through?
Yeah, well, I would say probably hundreds of bills are introduced. And so basically in Georgia, the legislative session is 2 years. So some bills that may have been filed this year, if they're not addressed by the end of the legislative session, they can carry over. But if it's not done within that 2 year period, then it dies and you have to start from scratch.
And we wonder why the wheels of government grind slowly, right?
Tremendously inefficient.
Well, on one hand, I mean, just given the type of stuff that that many of the bills that the legislator comes up with, some of us are really glad that it's only 40 days.
I can see that. I can see that on the flip side.
Yeah, to do damage. So because as you know, while I was serving as mayor, we were all always concerned about legislation that would come down, basically requiring unfunded mandates
right,
for municipalities to have to follow. And so we were really glad that they were not in session more than 40 days.
Yes, but but like you said, mayors, city councils, municipal elected officials are in session 352 days a year, basically. They don't, other than vacations. You're not, there's city council meetings in Lithonia, twice a month, first and third Mondays, every month of the year.
That's correct.
Yeah, there's no time off. So all politics are local, but they are
Well, that's where the real work gets done.
Exactly. We have to go to a foo-fop moment. And I know
you got a foo-fop?
I do have a foo-fop. It's and Mayor Jackson's looking like, what is a foo-fop moment?
Yes.
But
Yeah,
she's about to find out what that is. It's actually, usually we do a video, but I just have a meme this time, and I thought it was rather funny. So we're going to use that as our foo-fop moment. So
let's see it.
Let's see it. Okay. Here we go. We're going to bug out for a second, and then okay, you see that? Let's see, is it on the screen? So we're gonna.
I saw this one.
I'm just gonna read this out loud.
Yes.
Do you know why we can fly a helicopter on Mars but can't turn on a light in Texas? Because scientists are in charge of Mars, and Republicans are in charge of Texas.
Wait a second.
Boo, bop. Brain slapped. Intellectually knocked out. That means you have been foo-fopped.
My heart goes out to Texas, right? I want to say that first. My heart goes out to Texas. It is a terrible situation that they're in there. But did you see your boy run to Cancun, Mexico, though?
Yeah, I did. Mayor, that was our foo-fop.
His daughters. He's not even willing to take.
Yeah, he did on his children, right? We could have foo-fopped him today, actually.
He earned it.
He earned another foo-fop.
Brain slapped. Intellectually knocked out. That means you have been foo-fopped.
How do you be the leader of the city and then run when a disaster happens? What?
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. And then blame it on your kids.
And then blame it on your children. Man, that's our foo-fop. We do that every show. We just find something idiotic, and we usually have a video, but I couldn't help that meme. So they get the foo-fop of the day. We're about to end our show.
Wrap it up.
It's about it. I'm like, I had more that I wanted to talk to, but we're actually doing good. We're an hour and 3 minutes. Jensen likes to talk, Mayor Jackson, and it goes like an hour, 18 minutes, an hour, 22 minutes, and she doesn't really let the show close out. But anyway, I want to thank you so much, Mayor. Do you want to add anything, any closing parts, and close us out?
Yes, well, again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share some views. I would encourage all listeners, if you're in Georgia or otherwise, to follow what your state legislatures are doing around, voting rights. It's very important that we stand up and speak out.
Thank you, Mayor. Jensen, I missed you in the studio today.
You too, Kaz. I actually do want to ask you one more last question, though.
I told you,
Attorney Deborah Jackson. Don't do that. Don't do me like that. I actually just wanted to know if there's any way that people can follow you or keep up with you or be able to see what you have going on, so that next time you run for office, they know what's happening.
Yes, well, my Instagram account is Deborah for Georgia, and my Twitter handle is Mayor D.A. Jackson.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank everyone for listening. We'll be back next Saturday at 7:00. For those of us that you could always rewatch it on our Facebook page, but on Tuesday, our audio podcast will come up every Tuesday. You can listen to the audio if you're driving or moving around and can't sit there and watch a show. And we always encourage anyone to drop on Patreon. What's that handle, Jensen? Patreon.com/urban politician.
Politician, that is correct.
There it is. And follow us. We're out, family. See you next week. Peace and love.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.